Welcome to episode 259 of the Working Fans Podcast, where today myself and the man called Dave will be talking about a variety of subjects in the wrestling world. But before we do, we are going to get charged up with Game Up Hard Hydration. It's like your favorite sports drink and your favorite seltzer got together, had a baby, but it's so much better. 4 great flavors. Dave's going to give you the stats.
Hey, you talking about variety? We got to talk about fruit punch, orange, lemon, lime, and grape. Guys, like Joe said, or didn't say because I was too busy sharing, 110 calories, low carb. Get yourself some Game Up because it's the hottest fucking game drink around. I'm so excited. Let's go, baby.
Dave is pumped up, and he even had a great wrestling kind of adjacent suggestion this week. Because he knows I don't dig into the biographies or documentaries a ton. Dave said this one was worth checking out. Dave, why don't you tell the people about it?
Paul Heyman, A&E biography. I loved it. Obviously, you're going to get the stuff about Paul's wrestling career. You hardcore fans probably know about Paul sneaking into the Garden and getting a press pass and how he's done that. I won't spoil it if you don't know how he did it. It's a pretty cool story, too. But it goes into depth about Paul's family, too. It talks about, his parents, his father, lawyer, but the mom being a Holocaust survivor and what she wanted for Paul. And then Paul and his kids and how the mom's relationship being a Holocaust survivor affected what she expected from Paul and how Paul is the way he is, where he doesn't seem to really, care about anybody's judgment or, he doesn't need anybody's approval. He's one of those guys. And there's some great photos early on with Paul getting pictures at nightclubs, like in the old studio. I think it was 54, Joe. Does that sound right?
54, yep.
Yeah. With Michael Jordan and some of these other famous people, Lawrence Taylor. And I can't say enough. Like just good history stuff in it. And obviously a lot of great wrestling stuff. And Paul, as always, is just excellent. And even little peek behind the curtain where Triple H is talking to Paul about his, going into the Hall of Fame. And you see Triple H a little emotional. And that made me think as a fan, like, what an interesting relationship that must have been throughout the years. Because clearly Hunter values Paul's brain for the business, and they seem to have a good relationship. But we know his father-in-law with Paul was very up and down. So I just thought that might be interesting just to know about, too.
Well, that's great. I'll have to check that out. One thing I checked out part of, you checked out a little more of, and we are always excited when this event comes around. Josh Barnett's Bloodsport 11 was last Sunday, Brooklyn, New York. A lot more WWE representation on this. Yes. You had Charlie Dempsey returning. You had Shayna Baszler returning. You had the debut of the Creeds. Yes. The first thing I want to mention that I was surprised about, in the beginning, they always introduce all the fighters. And this time, it was Shayna Baszler to kick off the event, which I thought was ironic because not the greatest on the mic necessarily, but they gave her that spot to kick things off. And I thought that was a nice change. And it definitely seems like they're doing different stuff with this WWE relationship.
It is, but here's the thing I thought was interesting, too. First of all, I thought it was cool to see Shayna in that spot. I'll just say that, too, because she isn't the greatest on the mic, but she is probably the most established, biggest current name doing this right now. Couple things I really like, though. When you look at some of the people on here, obviously WWE and NXT, but Josh Woods was on this show. And when you look at him, he's from Ring of Honor and even was on AEW Collision. So you have representing from ROH, AEW, GCW, NXT, WWE, TNA. Like, this is like New Japan.
New Japan Pro Wrestling.
Yeah. So this is just a place where all these wrestlers can come, and it's like neutral ground. And I love that. It makes us feel cool. It makes it feel like it's still an underground thing, but almost like I'll equate it to like a comedy club, like those famous comedy clubs you hear where people go work on their improv and stuff, right? You never know who's going to show up if you're in New York, like the Cellar, or out in LA, right? Where if Dave Chappelle might show up. That's what Bloodsport is starting to feel like. You just don't know who's going to be at these things. So I really like that. And a couple other things I really liked, I'll just point out. Charlie Dempsey actually lost. Royce Isaac beat him. And I think that's great because now people are going to know, hey, just because an NXT or WWE guy's on here doesn't mean they're necessarily going to get the win. Or at least it puts a level of doubt. So having somebody, not having all the NXT guys win, I thought that was great.
Now, I was very surprised by the WWE wins, especially the Creed brothers, Julius be the walking weapon, Matt Mikowski, which that one I was like 50-50. I could have seen either side winning. But when you've got Brutus Creed up against Tom Lawler, I'm like, there's no way Tom Lawler's losing. Yeah. And then he does. And I was like, wow. So there is that element of doubt that are put into these matches that I really enjoy about this event.
And then too, and I might have spoiled this for Joe Roy, but MVP showed up and he had a verbal confrontation with Josh Barnett, friendly, that they admitted they were friends. But before he retires, he wants to do this and he plans on doing this. And he says he's currently, working for somebody else, but he plans on being there. And that got me excited because if you know the rumors, it's not just MVP who's supposed to be leaving, it's Bobby Lashley. And I thought, how exciting would it be to get Bobby Lashley in Bloodsport, especially against maybe MVP is like the start of this, right? Like Barnett maybe taps out MVP and then big Bobby Lashley shows up. Like, I'm just saying it's already exciting enough with all these guys, with all these free agents. It'd be really cool to see who else maybe shows up to these things in the future.
Yeah, I was excited to see MVP come out because MVP versus Josh Barnett would be a huge match. And Bloodsport, living up to the hype, it's always a great event. And speaking of something that's always a great event,
yes,
one of the typical WWE Big Four events, SummerSlam in Cleveland. When I told my brother it was this weekend, he was surprised it came up so quickly because he thought it was usually late August.
It usually is.
Yep. Yeah. I was surprised that it came up so quick too. But I'm ready for this because there's 5-6 matches on this thing, and they're all built up huge.
This is a 7-match pay-per-view, which is big. They have not had this many matches in a while, but there is 7.
And let's go through them because I believe almost every match is built up huge.
All right, we'll start off with I'm just going to go in the order that Wikipedia has, which is a little bit of a strange order, but what the hell? Let's have fun with it. Damian Priest versus Gunther for the Raw World title. All right, Gunther, King of the Ring, and he got this title shot back a couple months ago at SummerSlam automatically. So we've already established Gunther as the greatest Intercontinental Champion. He was the force behind NXT UK for the longest time. You cannot say enough great things about how WWE has pushed and built up Gunther. Now, in this feud, excuse me 1 second here, Damian Priest, the Raw World Championship. He's only had it for a couple months here, but, we've been establishing him. And now Gunther being this heel, calling him street trash. I talked about this last week, but really picking it up a notch with almost like this aristocrat. Gunther comes from wealth, and Damian Priest is less than him, right? And I think it really adds a little something personal to this. I'm excited. I think this can go either way because we know Gunther, they have that pay-per-view in Germany. And I could very well see Damian Priest winning here and Gunther winning the title in Germany. I personally hope they don't go that route. I hope Gunther wins here, and I hope he comes back to a hero's welcome as the world champion in Germany because I think there's some really cool stuff they could do there.
I think it's going to go the way you don't want it to go. Somehow Gunther is going to get cost the match, and we're going to get the rematch in Germany. Will it be Judgment Day? Who knows? But I feel like Damian Priest is going to get the win.
All right. Next match I got is Bayley versus Nia Jax. The one match that a friend of mine said he won't show up on. Nia Jax gets a lot of hate, but I think she's actually been a decent heel since coming back. They've been very careful about how they book her. She's been the queen of the ring. This is one match with Bayley. I'm probably not hugely excited for, though, because styles make matches. And I think Nia does better when she can really beat up somebody, throw someone around, and bounce them around a lot. Not that she can't do that for Bayley, but I just don't feel like this is going to be the match I'm looking forward to the most. That being said, I got to go with Bayley here because I think we have Tiffany Stratton teasing that Money in the Bank cash in at some point. Maybe we get it here. I don't know. but I think Tiffany will be the one to eventually get this title off of Bayley.
Yeah, my first thought when you said Nia Jax was, I was like, oh God, what the fuck?
Yep.
I see Bayley getting the win. This has got to be the least exciting of the matches, but there is build up because of that Queen of the Ring win.
Absolutely, absolutely. And then we got Liv Morgan versus Rhea Ripley for the Raw Women's Championship, and this match has been built up. It feels like forever since after WrestleMania, when Rhea got injured by Liv, accidental or not, it happened, and they've turned it into a storyline. And it's like arguably the hottest storyline in the company. And like, if you're not really into that soap opera element, I get it. But man, people are reacting hard to this. And I feel like we know what's going to happen here, but we still want to see it like a great car wreck, right? Like Dom is going to help Liv turn on Rhea, and they're going to keep Liv as the champion. That's what I see happening. I think people are going to react huge. I think they're going to boo Liv and Dom out of the building, but I think they're going to be the hottest heel couple in WWE right now.
And that's even hotter than Dom and Rhea had been before that. And it's wild because I heard on another wrestling podcast, and I had forgot this. Did you remember that Liv and Rhea had teamed before Rhea left Liv for the Judgment Day?
Man, I totally forgot about that. Rhea left Liv, right?
I didn't remember it. And then when I heard that, I'm like, oh wow. So this story's gone back even farther than we realize. And that's something that makes modern WWE that much better.
I like it. All right. Cody Rhodes defending the world championship against Solo Sikoa. I'm going to say I'm okay about this match. It has been built up. They've been really building up the bloodline, but I feel like the focus has been on Jacob Fatu in the bloodline. And I feel like beyond that, the other focus is, when is Roman come back? We're hearing that, when's Paul coming back? So I feel like this match is almost like a foregone conclusion. Like, we know Cody's keeping the title. It's the aftermath we're more curious about. And this is just a stop. So no offense to Solo, but that's just how I feel. I got to go with Cody Rhodes.
Yeah, it's going to be Cody. There could be some kind of fuckery involved, but it's going to result in the return of Roman, Paul, and let's say Jimmy.
Yeah, maybe. I don't know if we'll get all of them, but I definitely think we're going to be building towards that. And hey, just throw this out there. Another possibility, too, that people may not be thinking about. Maybe Roman's not coming back yet. Maybe Cody beats Solo, and he's like, I beat the head of table, and then The Rock comes out. Not saying that's happening either. Rock's a busy man, but I think it's a possibility. All right. We got Logan Paul defending the United States champion against LA Knight. Does LA Knight get it done here? I feel like in a lot of ways it's time, but I also feel like we're in Cleveland. This is Logan Paul's, city, and I don't know if they're going to take the title off of him yet. I'm kind of split on this one. I'm going to go with LA Knight, though. I think LA Knight gets the title now.
I want LA Knight to win it. Logan Paul is just such a commodity for WWE that having that championship on him has done so much for them, and to be able to show the brand off. In my stomach, I want LA Knight, but I feel like it's going to be Logan Paul.
I think you're right. I went with my heart, but I'm going to stick with my heart. We're going to go Logan Paul. LA Knight. I'll disagree on that one. But, all right, Sami Zayn versus Braun Breaker for the Intercontinental Championship. I love Sami, but this is Braun's title now. This is going to be Braun. Like, you could have argued he should have took it in Montreal and Money in the Bank. They wanted to keep it on Sami for a bit, but Braun has been explosive. He's got the best spear in the business. I think it's his time. He's walking away with that championship.
It's funny because I feel a little bit of that 50-50 that I talked about from the Logan Paul LA Knight match, but I'm more of the opinion that, right with you, that this is Braun Breaker's time. The back and forth in this feud has really built up Sami to be a champion worth Braun taking down. We've seen how resilient Sami is. And the great thing about him is he can move on to the next thing, and it doesn't hurt Sami as much as Braun not winning the title could hurt him.
I agree. All right. So I said earlier, arguably the hottest match and the biggest build and the biggest feud in the company is Liv and Rhea Ripley. This is the other argument. CM Punk, Drew McIntyre, and again, a similar situation where someone was injured, but they kept talking and they kept building, and they'd have these little moments where Punk cost Drew McIntyre the title at Mania after he won it, allowed Damien to do the cash in. Then he ruined Drew's cash in at Money in the Bank. And there's been moments where Punk or Drew beats the hell out of Punk, right? Leaves him laying, takes that bracelet. He's still showing that bracelet with his wife and his dog's name on it. And Drew's been absolutely probably one of the greatest internet trolls of all time, arguably, with some of the work he's been doing on Twitter with pictures of Jack Perry and all the other stuff he's doing. It's incredible the way they've built this up. And now we got Seth Rollins as a referee. I heard somebody say this a while before Seth was announced referee, how much they've been borrowing from Brett and Shawn in 97. And when I see that now, I go, oh, this reminds me, Undertaker, Bret Hart, SummerSlam 97, Shawn Michaels was the ref. Bret and Shawn get into it. Shawn takes a chair away from Bret. Bret spits in Shawn's face. Shawn goes to hit Bret with a chair. Bret ducks. He clocks the Undertaker. Bret covers the Undertaker. Shawn begrudgingly makes the pin. I see a similar situation happening here. I don't know if I was going to say it's exact, but I see that happening. I'm going to go with Seth accidentally costs CM Punk the match, because we've already seen Seth and Drew go at it, and I think that's going to set up a Seth Punk rivalry. So I'm going with that. I'm going to say Seth accidentally costs Punk. Drew will get the win, and we're going to be off to the races with Punk and Seth next.
That makes a lot of sense. I forget which podcast it was I was listening to this week. Might have been Between the Sheets, but they were talking about the legitimate hate between Punk and Drew McIntyre. Maybe not hate, but the dislike, and how they've been able to make it work into something, and how that was something that AEW had missed the boat with. And it's really made this build up to this match so intense and so interesting. I saw Seth costing somebody the match, and I'm gonna have to agree with the way you laid it out, because that sounds right. It's an homage to wrestling of the past, which we know at least Punk is very into.
Yeah.
I would assume Drew as well.
I bet you Drew.
I'm gonna agree with you.
Yeah, absolutely. So, and that's our WrestleMania. I mean, that's our SummerSlam card.
Now, I was going back through the comparisons that Dave put up recently, and I saw one that was interesting. We did Ron Simmons last week, so we are going to talk about Ron Simmons and Earthquake.
Yeah.
And to the casual fans, I think they would go just immediately with Ron Simmons being that college athlete, being that powerhouse, having such a long career. But when you look at John Tenta on the other side, I mean, sumo wrestler, much like Yokozuna, I'd say good in the ring and quick for given his size.
Throw a drop kick.
Exactly. And how big he got in WWE. He was able to stretch it out to, WCW.
What I love about this too is quietly I've noticed, looking at our numbers and some of our algorithm, is when I start doing these comparisons, Ron Simmons ones have been hitting our audience for some reason, and we get a decent response out of all the Ron Simmons ones, and I love it. It makes me want to do more, because Ron, especially this WCW time period, I feel like is so underappreciated in the big scheme of things. But I have such a soft spot, and I love that WCW World Title reign he had over Vader. In the ring, bell to bell, Simmons probably a little more explosive. Power wise, who the hell knows? Different type of strength we're talking about. Man, if this was a real fight, like in the back area of a locker room, somebody actually mentioned this in the comment, like it would have been more interesting if we said who would win a shoot fight, and it's like, I don't know, because nobody messed with Ron apparently, but Tenta was like that other dude that nobody really liked to mess with. In ring wise, I'll go with Ron, but it's super close. You could argue Tenta too. Different styles. In a shoot fight, I don't even know where to begin. That would be amazing, though.
That's a good question. I'm gonna shoot fight. I guess I'm gonna have to give the edge to Ron Simmons,
Mhm.
although
Close.
it could be a coin flip.
Tend to
Talk
get
about
good night.
yeah, and if you talk about in ring, it's tough because Simmons had that world championship run. I mean, Earthquake was a tag team champion, was very good in the ring, but never held that top spot. Didn't mean he wasn't worthy of it.
Yeah.
He just never made it to.
Had that great run with Hogan too as a main event.
Yeah, I'm gonna give the edge to Earthquake just because I feel like sumo over football, like maybe just by a little bit. This is a match I would have loved to have seen.
Yeah.
I can't believe we didn't see it.
Tenta had really good success in sumo young. I think if it wasn't for money, that's why he went to pro wrestling. But Ron Simmons, 4-time All-American in college football too. So you're talking about people that were successful at a high level before they even got into pro wrestling.
Definitely. And another thing, Dave, speaking of things we never thought we'd see, we've heard a lot about it. This picture leaked this week, and you sent the link. We didn't talk about it much till just before the show, very briefly. But let's go over our thoughts about this because so Shane McMahon and Tony Khan have met. That much we can establish by the photo.
Yeah.
Is the story being overblown?
Yeah, on purpose. I mean, this photo was purposely leaked out. Nobody they don't have security here. They could have stopped this photo from happening. So, so on purpose, this was leaked by Tony Khan, I would imagine, obviously.
Because imagine if it wasn't on purpose, wouldn't
Right.
he have gotten it taken down by now?
Of course he would.
We've been got hit quick with an AEW copyright strike once upon a time.
Yeah. So I don't know. I mean, it's too hard to say if this or anything to this. This would to me, this goes on Shane McMahon. I mean, at least logically, it should. I mean, if I'm Tony Khan, I would want Shane in AEW because I think even for only 6 months, he's such a name and it would create like controversy. Like you could just have so much fun with this. But is this what Shane would want to do? I don't know. I don't know Shane's relationship with WWE anymore. He always had a strained relationship even when his dad was there. So it's kind of hard to say. And what would they do with Shane too, right? Is he going to go like the evil GM? We kind of done that already. But hey, it's fun to fantasy book. It's fun to see. But honestly, just one photo, all it means is they've met up. There is nothing anyone can say right now. I heard a great theory that maybe part of this was purposely leaked because now the ratings with the Olympics, a lot of wrestling is going to be taking a beating. So maybe you create a little buzz. People might get the idea, is Shane McMahon going to show up on Dynamite, right? And so they watch Dynamite just in the hopes that happens. So if that was the case, cool, good idea. But yeah, until I see more of this, I'm just gonna have to take it as they met. Maybe somebody, Mercedes, I know she took credit for this. Maybe she just said, "Hey, you should meet Tony. They're good guys," and maybe they had a lot in common, right? Sons of people with a lot of money involved in pro wrestling fans. They met.
Yeah, there's so many different possible facets to this. Like if you look at both sons of billionaires in the wrestling business, the obvious thing is if Shane McMahon wanted to meet, why wouldn't you take that meeting?
Right.
Maybe on Shane's end, maybe it's something that since WWE got sold outside of the family and he never got figured into possibly running it, this is his time to cement almost his legacy. Maybe in some way he's trying to redeem the McMahon name. Not totally, because you're never going to clean Vince McMahon's name, but looking so much like Vince and being his son, maybe this is the way to step out of the shadow. On Tony Khan's side, you're probably not going to use him in the ring, but why not have him as an executive? Why not have him, maybe working with the booking?
Sure. Absolutely.
Another outside possibility that I've heard nobody bring up. What if this is football related?
Oh yeah, who knows?
Shane's son plays college football.
Yeah.
Maybe this is some kind of meeting about that. I don't know what it could be, because I've seen it only reported by a couple sites, and like the news sites that I really follow for wrestling news have speculated about it but haven't reported on anything exactly. So I'm waiting to see how this plays out. It's very interesting. It gets everybody talking about wrestling, and it could be exactly what AEW needed.
I'll only say this. I know there's talks that WWE has allowed people to keep their name now that they're leaving. Obviously, I only hope he can keep that. If he does so, that Here Comes the Money music. Because imagine Wembley Stadium, you suddenly hear that shit. That's people are gonna lose their minds, and it'd be a cool moment for them. So, also just throw it out there. I wonder what the world of perception would think. Because let's be honest, AEW was built on the alternative to WWE, right? I wonder what the world would think if Vince McMahon in some alternate universe showed up on AEW television with Shane. Like, I think heads would just, I don't see it happening, but
no, I don't think it could happen. But that could really be wild. And it's kind of crazy to think, because think about it. Like a year ago, we were talking about it being an era without a McMahon in wrestling. Yeah. And now, if Shane joins AEW and ratings go up, does that almost mean that there's no wrestling without a McMahon?
Yeah, I think that I don't know if we'll ever get rid of these McMahons, honestly, because there's some kids that are growing up too, You're going to be a McMahon or a Levesque. There's going to be someone around,
And I mean, saying that, it like, could there be no wrestling without a McMahon? There could be no party without Game Up Hard Hydration.
If you haven't tried Game Up, then you are missing out. Imagine your favorite seltzer and your favorite sports drink had a baby, but it's way better than that. Each can is 110 calories, low carb, 4.9 ABV. It's a nice light drink that is not light on flavor. Game Up comes in fruit punch, orange, lemon, lime, and grape. Pick it up at drinkgameup.com or at your nearest liquor store.
And they also say it ain't a bookshelf without a book from Wrestleville.
Hey, all you got young wrestling fans out there, listen, Old Black Bart has got a book. It's called Wrestle. Right there. It's got some dead good stories in there about some dead good wrestlers.
Read stories of Dusty Rhodes, the Von Erich, Scott Casey, Sergeant Slaughter, Roddy Piper, Mr. Fuji, Ron Bass, Bruiser Brody, Mike Davis, the Grappler, and many others.
And I guarantee you one thing, that it'll be the best dadgum read you've had in a long, long time.
Get your book today at Russellville.com or on Amazon. Russellville, it's where wrestling lives.
Read about the Northern Wrestling Federation in the book presented by Russellville.com, The Pro Wrestling Vault, Volume 2. Hear the story of Roger Ruffin, the man who trained Carl Anderson, the Monster Abyss, Jordan Clearwater, Chris Harrison, Jillian Hall.
Plus 45 other short stories including Jazz, Bobby Eaton, Kamala, Thunder Rosa, Mario Mancini, Scott Casey, PJ Black, Kerry Morton, Sal Renaro, Jeremiah Plunkett, Colby Carino, Bam Bam Malone, and many others.
Get your book today at Russellville.com. Russellville, it's where wrestling lives.